Hey guys, welcome to the video. Okay, so if you have ever wondered why it's so hard to stop overeating despite how much you want to, despite how badly you want to, then you're in the right spot because we're gonna get into that today. So welcome to the video. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tara Allen and I help women get healthy, fit, and strong. That's the quick version of what I do. I work with people virtually. So I'm a virtual coach, which means that even if you're not on chilly Long Island right now, in super cold New York right now, we still get to work together. I get to help people from all over, which is amazing. Being able to utilize technology to reach as many people as possible feels like a dream come true to me. So I help women from all over get healthy, fit, and strong. And my background is kind of diverse. It's a little bit all over the place, but it all meets in the middle, which is the area in which I help you from. So let me give you an example. So I'm a women's health registered nurse. I am a certified nutritionist, a health coach, a personal trainer, and I've gone back to school for different certifications and things in behavioral change and psychology and that type of thing, because each piece by itself wasn't enough for me to be able to help you. I needed to kind of gather it up the way that I needed to be able to teach it to you. So that should give you a little bit of an idea as far as the types of things that I help people with. I help women get healthy, fit, and strong through talking about and balancing and dealing with emotions and hormones and nutrition and fitness and mindset and finding joy, because it's kind of all connected. If you are not feeling healthy, then you're not having your greatest joy in life, and vice versa. If you're not having your greatest joy in life, you're not gonna be able to go on that path for transformation to get ultimate health, optimal health. Okay, so that's what I do if we haven't met yet, and I see Jessica's here. Hey Jess, thank you. Jessica says your teeth are so white. Jess, I think it's just the light. I've got like the natural light going on here, so I think that's what it is. And happy Thanksgiving to you too. So let's get into it. What is overeating anyway? So overeating is it can be emotional eating when you're not hungry, eating binge eating. Eating anything that has to do with eating more than your body requires for fuel is considered overeating. So for some people, this leads to storing excess body fat and having excess weight that they want to lose, but not everybody. For some people, they have a fast metabolism, or they don't do this overeating often enough where it actually affects their weight, but it can be affecting their health. I work with women who have trouble with things like autoimmune issues and histamine issues and that type of thing, which can very much come down to the amount that we're overeating, because our bodies have to process all this extra food. We have all of these extra byproducts, which aren't healthy to us, right? If it's anything above what we really need, it's really not healthy for us to be breaking this down. It would be like taking extra medicine. Let's say you take a medicine that you believe to be healthy for yourself, but if you took extra of it, it wouldn't be good, right? Because your body has to break that all down. It's the same thing with food. We want to take what we need. We want to definitely, fuel our bodies, get the energy from it, even enjoy it while you're eating, but we don't want to take in all of that extra, because then our bodies have to break it down. It's not good for us. So that's what overeating is. Sorry, I got my notes over here. I don't want to miss anything. Hey, Tiffany, thanks for joining. What's going on? So based on that definition of overeating, do you know anybody that has overeaten before? And not everyone might want to raise their hand, but I think we all do. I think we've all done it ourselves, but I'm not going to call anybody out. I certainly have done it, and I don't really know many people, if anybody, that hasn't overeaten at some point. So here in the US, it's the day before Thanksgiving. It's the day before the holiday in which most of us overeat. Most of us even plan on overeating, right? How weird of a holiday is that we go into Thanksgiving like planning on feeling sick afterwards and overeating. Hey Tiffany, thanks for the wave. Hey Joe, thanks for joining. So we go into Thanksgiving and we plan on overeating, right? But if all we ever did was overeat on Thanksgiving, would it really be a problem? Probably not, right? One day a year. How about if we did it once a month? How about if we did it once a week? How about if we were overeating every day consistently? Overeating could mean that you're eating so many times throughout the day that you don't need to. Overeating could mean that you go all day without eating and then you just do that one binge at night. It looks differently for different people. Only you know, and you do know if you're overeating, okay? If you're using food for something other than what it's intended to be, then you're overeating. So, since most of us, we can agree, have dealt with this or are dealing with this, then let's talk about why it's so hard. How come we can't just say, I don't want to overeat anymore and just stop? Because we can't. We can't just stop like that. And I'm going to tell you why. So a lot of people, a lot of clients, and a lot of you guys come to me telling me that you've tried everything in the past, right? So you might have tried, Tara, I've tried everything in the past. Either to lose weight, but this is not even just about weight loss, to stop overeating. I've tried everything in the past. Okay. First of all, I'm going to say, have you really tried everything, right? Because there's so many different things that you could try out there. You probably haven't tried everything. The things that you did try, did you give it a really good try, or did you kind of half-butt it and go after it just a little bit and then kind of give up after you weren't seeing the results? That's number one. But number two, if you truly have tried 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 10 times, I don't care. If you've tried a lot of times to stop overeating, then I think that's amazing, because it takes practice. And if you've tried 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 times, then that means you're that much closer to being able to stop. You're that much closer because it takes practice. If this is your first time to try to stop overeating, then you might be in it for an even longer time, because it's going to take lots of practice. So you might as well just get yourself comfortable and realize that there's no quick fix. If you've come to this video today because you think I'm going to say, this is why it's hard to overeat, and here's an easy swap so that you can just turn it off like that, then you're in the wrong spot, because I'm not going to tell you that today. I am going to go into why it's hard, so once you can start to understand it, you can kind of catch yourself in these different things, and I will give you some tips at the end, real tangible things that you can start to use. You could start to use it as soon as tomorrow for Thanksgiving if you'd like, or you can try to wait until after Thanksgiving and see how you can apply these things to your life. So we're either winning or we're learning. And the learning is the most important part. So notice I didn't say winning or losing. I didn't say winning or failing, right? We're winning or we're learning, and we want to make sure we're learning more than we're winning, because we don't really learn a lot when we're winning, okay? So that's what it all comes down to, is practice. So why is it so hard to stop overeating? Does anyone have a guess? By the way, if you are here live, come on, let's be interactive here. But if you're watching the replay, I still want to hear from you. If you're watching the replay and you are cooking your Thanksgiving dinner right now and you're just listening, if you don't have a greasy hand, come over to the comments and type in, tell me where you're watching from, and tell me what you're doing right now. Okay, so why is it so hard to stop overeating? Well, our evolution has made it such that we are really good at hunting and searching for food. We're really good at, Tiffany says it's hard because your body gets addicted to things. Oh yeah, that's it too, absolutely. We're gonna get into that too in a few minutes. We're really good at searching for food. We're really good at finding it. We're really good at eating as much as we can, as fast as we can, and then storing it as fat on our bodies. And why would that be? Well, because the truth is, the cavemen and women who could binge eat and store body fat the best, those were the ones that survived. Those were the ones that made it this far. The other ones that couldn't do that, because of famine and all kinds of things that they went through, right? If you can picture cavemen and women and what we could imagine they might have went through, the ones that couldn't binge and eat really fast and eat tons of food, and the ones that couldn't store it as body fat really well, they died off, right? They weren't able to reproduce, and so we are not descendants of them. We are descendants of the people who were really good at binging and storing body fat. That's who we are, all of us walking around here. We are survivors, or our ancestors were survivors, because they could do those things. So what we're talking about here is having this instinct, this animalistic instinct that is so deep rooted in us that it's actually our body thinks that we need it in order to survive. So, hey Jennifer, thanks for watching. So why then something that helped us so much in the past would hurt us so much now? I'm going to pause to see if anyone wants to answer. It was so helpful for us in the past, but how come it's not really helping us right now? Right now, we're living in a completely different time, right? Where we don't have to worry about storing body fat. We don't have to worry about going, long, cold winters without being able to find food. It's all around us, okay? It's actually around us so much that every commercial, every social event, everything you could imagine is always revolving around food, okay? Especially this time of year during the holidays. So what served us back then is not serving us now, and overeating is so hard to stop because we have all of this software, all of this programming still in our brains to tell us to keep doing this. And yet we're in a society, most of us, thankfully, we can be grateful about this, right? Because there are a lot of people around the world, unfortunately, that do not have all of this access to the food that you or I have. But people watching this video probably have a lot of access to food, and it's not an issue for us right now, right? We can have food whenever we want to. Even if we can't always afford the organic or whatever, we can have some sort of food or food products around us all the time. So that's why it's an issue now, right? Because we've got all of these chronic illnesses that we see everywhere. Chronic illnesses are now top priority, because we're not talking about infections as much as we used to be and all of that. Modern time now, we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about obesity, we're talking about even more subtle things like lack of energy and lack of motivation. Then we're talking about depression and anxiety. All of these things can be tied into this cycle of overeating, right? A lot of times it's affected by this. So we're overeating, we've got diabetes, some cancer has been linked to this. It's really a big topic. It's important to wrap our minds around. So it helped us then in the past, right? And it's hurting us now. So we know we need to change it, and we know it's so deep rooted in us that it comes back from our ancestors. Okay, so why then? Well, we have to overcome this natural inclination to seek out food all the time and eat it as fast as possible and store it as much body fat as we can. Our body and our brain have not caught up yet to modern living. So it's around us all the time, and our body and our brain, the software that's in there has not really quite understood the fact that we don't have to get our hands on a whole bunch of food all the time. And our brain is amazing, and it's such that it's always seeking out pleasure because, again, that helped us with our survival. So it wants to be comfortable. It doesn't want to be hungry. It wants to not have negative emotions. Right? So it just always wants to be comfortable, feel comfortable, have all the comforts that it could possibly have. So today I'm going to get into 4 areas of focus that break down even more why overeating is so hard to give up, okay? And then at the end, I'm going to give you a couple of practical tips that you can take away right away today. So the first area is emotional management. We have to learn how to be okay feeling our emotions. We have to be okay emoting. We have to be okay with not having to quickly buffer a negative emotion with something such as food. Now, this goes for other things too. If you're over drinking, if you're thinking that you're going to walk into Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow with that crazy aunt that bothers you all the time by drinking 4 glasses of wine, you're over drinking. You're using it to buffer your emotions instead of just feeling the emotions. So if we could allow ourselves to feel the emotions, then there would be nothing that we'd be afraid of. If you were okay, think about it. If you were okay being humiliated, sad, angry, feeling as if you were a failure, lack of self-confidence, if you actually were okay feeling those things and knowing that they would pass and you'd get onto all the happy emotions too, then there'd be nothing to be afraid of. Because everything that we're trying to prevent all comes down to trying to prevent some sort of a negative emotion, right? But if you were okay feeling and experiencing those negative emotions, allowing yourself to just work right through that, then you wouldn't be afraid to do anything, because you would just be like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'll feel like a failure. I'll feel humiliated. Those are the worst things that can happen. So I might as well just do it. I'm not afraid of that, right? So instead of trying to cover up with food, because food is that quick pleasure, a lot of times we try to distract ourselves with the food, right? Or we try to give us that false pleasure with food. And if you take that away, if you just take away the food, you're left having to deal with those emotions. Now you have to actually deal with your anxiety. Now you have to actually recognize that you're feeling depressed, or that you're feeling like a failure, or you're feeling unmotivated, okay? You have to actually feel those things. You have to feel that you've got these urges, these cravings. You have to feel all those things. You might feel hungry, okay? And we're gonna talk about overhunger in a little bit. I'm not talking about not eating enough, but there are situations where you actually might feel overhungry too often. So we'll get to that in a minute. So if you can process and sit with your emotions instead of buffering them or covering them up or reacting to them with food, that's a big step in the right direction. And guess what? That takes practice. So I'm not just going to tell you this today and you're going to switch it and change it for tomorrow. I'm going to tell you this today and you're going to need to think about it. You might even want to resist it a little bit. You might even have negative feelings towards me because I'm the messenger right now, right? But eventually it'll sink in. Eventually you'll practice it and you'll get better and better and better at it, okay? It's all about practice. So the second area of focus for why it's so hard to stop overeating is that you need to understand dopamine, okay? So dopamine is, you might have heard of it, maybe not. Raise your hand if you've heard of dopamine. And I'm going to keep talking because I know there's a delay here, but raise your hand if you've ever heard of dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter in our bodies that give us pleasure. It gives us the sense of pleasure. A little squirt of it is released when we do something that's pleasurable, okay? Jennifer says resistance to the messenger. Yes, exactly. You might feel resistance to the messenger. It's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with not being everybody's best friend if I'm going to say things that are difficult so that it helps somebody else. I'm totally fine with that role. So dopamine brings us pleasure when we do something. So for example, when we eat, we get a release of dopamine. It brings us a little bit of pleasure. And that's a good thing because that motivates us to do it again. So think about back in that caveman and cavewomen situation. If you'd eat and you get a little release of that dopamine, it would give you that motivation to next time go hunt the food or gather the food, because it's a lot of work, right? You could only imagine. I've never hunted or had to gather anything, but I can only imagine it's a lot of work to get yourself ready to go hunt or to go gather food. So you need that motivation, and you get it from the previous time that you ate and you got that little release of the dopamine. In your brain, it's a neurotransmitter. So we're like, oh yeah, we're chasing it, right? It's almost like chasing a high. So concentrated man-made food, which is food that, again, our bodies and our brains have not caught up to modern living. That's a big theme here. So our bodies, we don't know what a cheese doodle is, okay? We've never heard of a Pop-Tart if you're looking into our genes. We don't know what those things are. They're not real food, and we don't know how to process them. So as such, because they're so concentrated, because they have been actually literally created to have what they call a bliss point, which is a point like just the perfect amount of sugar and fat and fakeness that make our taste buds love it, right? That's why these things taste so good. It gives us that extra release of dopamine. So it's like a huge hit of dopamine when we get that. And then what happens is we're always chasing that high, okay? Because the little squirt of dopamine that we'd get when we had like an avocado now does not compare at all. It pales in comparison to that huge squirt of dopamine that we get when we eat a Pop-Tart, okay? So when you're in the situation and you've got these urges and these cravings, you're gonna reach for the Pop-Tart probably, if that's what you're used to, because we're used to getting that bigger release of dopamine. It's because the food is so concentrated. So we have to first work on mindful eating before we remove these types of foods, because once you take away these types of foods, the man-made, the highly processed, you will have huge, intense urges and sugar cravings that will be very hard for us as humans to move past for any length of time. Okay, you might be able to white knuckle it for a week, a couple of weeks or something, but if you haven't actually changed anything about the way that you're eating and kind of the foundation, then you won't be able to get past those urges. So that's why when I'm working with somebody one-on-one in my virtual coaching, we start with the foundations of like mindful eating more slowly, okay, because then you're really tasting your food. You would be so surprised at how different the foods that you think that you love actually taste if you eat them really slowly. A lot of people tell me that they start to notice like the chemical taste, the fakeness of the foods, just by slowing down to eat them that way, right? There's a reason why some of your favorite foods you have to eat in a rush in order to enjoy them, because if you actually slowed down to enjoy them, you probably wouldn't like it as much, okay? So that's why I start with people. We don't start working on day one and I'm like, hey, get rid of all these foods. First of all, I never ever tell people to just get rid of foods, okay? I definitely approach it with more of a moderation approach. But before we even touch what's on your plate, we have to spend some time in learning how to eat mindfully and more slowly and all of those things. And as woo-woo as you might think it sounds, if you're rolling your eyes at me, I can't see you, but as woo-woo as that sounds, it's really, really effective, and it's based in science and all of that. I'm a science geek, okay? So I do believe in the spiritual type things, but I won't do anything unless there's like a reason to do it. So this stuff works because, like I said, you slow down, you learn to internalize your hunger cues. So rather than just think that you're hungry because you walked by a donut shop, you learn to really think about if you're actually hungry. Okay, so that's why we do that first, okay? Now, our primitive brain always wants to be searching for the pleasure, okay? Our primitive brain always wants the high calorie, the really sweet foods, the really high fatty foods. That's what it wants because, as we talked about, your body is getting used to or wanting to eat fast, eat tons of food, and store it as body fat, okay? And that's a good thing from your past. That's no longer a good thing that's serving us right now. But your primitive brain, just so you know, will always be craving those things. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing broken. It just means that you have descended from your ancestors that were really, really successful in being able to store this fat, okay? That's all it is. It's just a matter of your genetics. So we have to use our prefrontal cortex. That's like the human part of the brain, not the animal brain, but the human brain, in order to override these things, okay? Because we as humans, we do have the ability to sort of witness what we're doing from a higher level, like this meta skill of being able to do it and see what's going on. But then it takes tons and tons of practice. So the third thing that you're going to want to overcome when you want to stop overeating is conditioning. So if all of your life so far you've had an urge and then you gave in, then you had an urge and you gave in, you had a craving, you gave in, then that's what you're conditioned to do, right? So if you know about that Pavlov's dog where there was an experiment and he would ring a bell, the dog would salivate, he would get a treat. He'd ring the bell, the dog would salivate, he'd get a treat. And then the dog would just start to salivate when he'd hear the bell ringing because he knew that that was what was going to happen. Well, what you have to do here, you get an urge and then you give in, right? You have the urge and your body knows you're going to give in. You get that dopamine release each time. What you have to do here for the conditioning is decondition yourself. So you have to allow yourself to have the urge or the craving and not give in. And it's going to be so hard at first. And then you're going to do it again, and it's still going to be hard. And you're going to do it again, and it's going to be not quite as hard. And you have to practice. You have to have the urge and not give into it, okay? So how can this work in real life? Well, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. And for a lot of us, we might have our favorite desserts. It might be the dinner that you're waiting for all year long, and you've got some of your favorite foods. So right now, it's about, 24 hours in advance, right? You could plan ahead of time what you want to eat. That's not the same thing as having an urge and giving into it. If you right now say, I'm going to go over my cousin's house and she's going to have her famous pumpkin pie there tomorrow. I only eat it once a year and I'm really looking forward to it. You can plan today and say, I'm going to have a slice of that tomorrow. And that's using your prefrontal cortex. That just means like your human brain and not your animal brain. It's not that you're just in front of all these things and you're having the urge and you're giving in, right? So if you can plan ahead of time, that helps too. And then be okay with sitting with the urge and not giving into it right away. Hey, Faith, thanks for joining. And then the fourth part that we're breaking down and why it's so hard to stop overeating is socialization, all right? So again, with Thanksgiving tomorrow, this can't come at any better time. But we feel safe when we're in herds. We don't feel safe when we're doing something that's different from other people. And that's, again, a survival mechanism from way back when. It's amazing at how much our ancestors are affecting us now, right? So we used to have to stay in crowds of people, in herds. It took a village, all of those things. We had to stay together, and you didn't want to be the outcast. So our brains have developed into these machines that sort of want to keep us connected and doing what other people are doing. So it's very hard to go against the grain. It's very hard to tell somebody that you don't want to clean your entire plate when you know that they're trying to love on you by telling you to finish your plate, right? It's very hard to have those conversations with people that can be difficult in saying, hey, this is my goal. I'm on a health path. I'm on a transformation journey, whatever you want to call it. And here's how you can show up for me in the best way. Here's how you can support me. That's hard to say, right? So what do? We bottle it all up, and then we explode or we withdraw, and we're just not ever dealing with it, right? The much easier for you in the long run thing to do would be to have that difficult conversation with somebody and saying, I don't need to clean my plate. I'm a grown woman and I don't need to clean my plate. If I have 2 bites left and I'm full, please don't ask me to finish my plate. I'm only saying this, you guys, because I actually have clients that tell me that this is still a problem. I have clients in their 30s and 40s and 50s who are having dinner with relatives or with loved ones and still finding pressure from others. Why aren't you eating the dessert? Oh, are you on a diet again? Why aren't you eating that dessert? Why aren't you finishing your plate? There's still pressure out there all the time. And then think about how we celebrate everything with food, okay? Starting from a very young age, these babies are celebrating everything with food at school. Thanksgiving is going to be all about how much you can eat. And probably if you used to eat everything and this year you show up and you don't eat everything, chances are someone's going to notice and they might call you out tomorrow. How are you going to deal with that? What if Aunt Sally is like, you're eating like a bird today, right? And you're not eating like a bird, but you're just eating only what you need to be eating. What are you going to say to that? So a lot of this also is planning ahead of time before you go into it and being okay with standing your ground. It doesn't mean that you have to be rude to people, but you can stand your ground and say, this is what I'm doing, and it's for my own health, and I'd really appreciate your support in this, okay? So that's what I was going to say. We have to overcome our urges. And another thing to keep in mind, too, is what would happen if you, beyond Thanksgiving, let's talk beyond Thanksgiving, what would happen if you gave up some of those man-made hyper palatable foods that we consume? What would happen? Your menu might get a little bit more boring, right? But you wouldn't get as much pleasure from the food. What happens is that you're going to go seek pleasure in other areas of your life, which is probably exactly what you want to happen, okay? So it doesn't mean swap out the food and start taking drugs instead, but try to have maybe more of a boring menu and try to rely on seeking joy in other areas of your life. You're going to be forced to do that because remember, I said our brain is very hardwired to seek out pleasure. So just try it. It could be an experiment. If you make your food a little bit less exciting to you, right? I'm not saying never have dessert or whatever, and never have the wine. I have those things too sometimes. But I'm talking about on a regular basis, on a basis where you're being led through the day instead of controlling your day and what you're eating. Do you have control over it? Are you planning I'm going to have that glass of wine? Or is it the wine is calling out to you and you just can't stop it? That's totally different, right? Same thing with food. So see if you can tap into your human brain, let your human brain control your animal brain, and tell yourself that you're going to eat this, this, and this because you know that that's what your body needs and you don't need to eat more than that. And see what happens. Sit through the urges, sit through the sugar cravings, sit through the feelings of deprivation. feel them. It's okay. Nothing's gonna happen. You can feel those urges and see how you can make it through. And the truth is, most cravings don't really last that long. So if you can sit with yourself for like 10, 15 minutes and not give into it, you might find that you're totally distracted and on to the next thing anyway. See if it works. And those are the ways that we overcome overeating. So in a nutshell, why is it so hard to stop overeating? Because our genes are programmed that way. Because we've come from a time where you could only survive if you knew how to overeat. And that's why it's so hard. 2 tips today. Faith says, let me see Faith here. I always eat my veggies first on Thanksgiving to make an attempt to stay away from the stuffing. Doesn't always work, but I try. That's awesome. I love that strategy. So you're filling up with like the fiber and the good stuff, and you'll probably have less room. That's a great tip. The other thing on Thanksgiving is if you're engaged in conversation with people that you're not seeing every day anyway, that might be a good opportunity to slow down when you're eating, right? Because you're not going to, unless you really dislike the people that you're with. But if you like anybody that's going to be with you tomorrow, you can like take a bite, put the fork down, right? And then when you notice that you're feeling full, you've done this enough times, you know that it's going to hurt if you really stuff yourself to that point, right? You know that it's going to feel like garbage. And the food, there's probably plenty of leftovers, you can have it later. So if you're worried about missing out, just stop when you're feeling satisfied or full. Try not to overstuff yourself. And then a few hours later when you're hungry, you can always go back into the leftovers, right? So, all right, so tip number 1, we'll talk outside of Thanksgiving. Let's say starting tonight and then Friday, okay? Because I know Thanksgiving's a little different. But try planning your meals ahead of time. Plan your meals ahead of time, what you're going to eat. Try it even for one day, and if you like it, do it more than one day. And tell yourself this is what you're going to eat no matter what. You will feel the urges. You're going to feel that brain being like a little bratty toddler telling you, but I want more, but I want this, and I don't want to eat that, or whatever. But that's exactly the point. When you're making that plan from a place of looking out for your own best health, then stick to it and deal with the urges that come up, because that's your first chance to practice. And like I said, the more you practice that, the easier it gets. So you can't get to the other side of this without feeling those cravings and urges. So you might as well just start getting through it now, right? Or tonight or on Friday. So plan your meals, stick to it no matter what. And then the other thing is practice sitting with your emotions, okay? Because most of us are overeating for some other reason. We're depressed, we're anxious, we're bored, we're procrastinating something, we're fearing something, whatever. Okay, there's usually we're sad. There's usually some reason that we're overeating. Sometimes it's as simple as we need a break. Like if you're working really hard and you find yourself always binging kind of in the middle of working, like let's say you work at night and you find yourself binging, it might just be that you wanted to remove yourself and give yourself a break. And if it wasn't for eating, you weren't going to allow yourself to have a break, right? Like maybe you wouldn't have allowed yourself to have a break to take a bath or to read a book, but you're like, oh, well, I got to eat, so that's why I'm taking a break, right? And then sometimes we can overstuff ourselves because you just need that break. Just be really aware of yourself. And you guys, I know this video is getting long, so I'm going to stop it soon, but don't you think it's ridiculous that we teach in school, geography and geometry and all these things, which I think are wonderful. I love that our kids are learning this and that we learn this stuff in school. But don't you think it's ridiculous, or am I the only one, that we don't learn about our emotions and how to deal with them when that truly is like the basis of everything in life, in how you can get along with other people, in how well you can show up for your job, in how well you can live out your purpose and do good things in the world? We have to get a hold of our own emotions in order to do any of those things, just like we have to get a hold of our own emotions in order to stop overeating, okay? So plan your meals and stick to it, and get really good at dealing with your urges and your cravings and your emotions. Just practice. It's going to suck. It is supposed to suck when you're starting this, but get used to doing it and practice. And every day, every week, it's going to get easier from that point on. Okay, so if you like videos like this and you want to get in on a community of women, mostly women, some men, who are going through all of these things with you, then make sure you join my private Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, which you are because you're watching this video right now, it's called Lean In with Tara Allen Health, okay? So a little play on words because everyone wants to lean out and I want you to lean in with Tara Allen Health, okay? In there I share healthy recipes. Of course, this time of year, it's all like healthified versions of our favorite holiday comfort foods and desserts and fun stuff like that. This is my favorite time of year for recipes. So we've got recipes, we've got weekly challenges, we've got tips, we've got full body workouts, all kinds of things that you need. But most of all, you've got more access to this community of women and to myself. So if you have questions and all that stuff, I'm in that group quite a lot. So please join it if you need any help with anything or if you're just on this journey and you want some support. It's Lean In with Tara Allen Health, and I will see you in there. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody that's in the U.S. Happy end of your week to everybody that's not in the U.S. I know it's not really a big week for you guys, but that's it. I hope we all get the chance to sit back and think about a bunch of things that we're thankful for this week. We should do it every day, but this is a good reminder this week to think about all the things that we're grateful for, all the things we're thankful for. Hey, Sarah, thanks for joining. I'm jumping off now, Sarah, but the replay will be available shortly. All right, happy Thanksgiving, you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.